Hello, my name is Irishfreethinker. My contribution today is a response to an article written by a Professor William Reville of University College Cork in Ireland. The article, as my title already suggests, is called Why Atheism Requires a Leap of Faith. And I am responding to this article because I profoundly disagree with many of the assumptions and ideas that are raised in the article, but also because I believe the article is quite bigoted in its attitude to people like myself who would be atheists. There is another reason, of course, why after almost 4 years I am responding to this, and that is that I've only just come across the article when it was shown to me that the article in question is actually used by a section of the Irish university system as a handout to its students who are studying religion. The Mater Dei Institute, which is part of the Irish educational or the Irish university system, actually hands this article out to its university students who are studying religion. One can only assume from that they view this as an important article, despite the fact that many of the assumptions in it are not only wrong, but are actually quite bigoted. And that's why I'm responding to it after over 4 years. Professor Reville starts off his article with the following statement: books promoting atheism and attacking religion are published regularly. Example, The God Delusion by Richard Dawkins and others. Now, let's have a look at this. Attacking religion. It seems that any time an atheist questions the validity behind religion, the reason why people would believe in religion, it is an attack. Now, I do not accept that. That is a pejorative term, and it absolutely is not the case. Atheists attack nobody. We question, we argue, we debate, but we attack nobody. And setting out your article with that word attack against atheists is fundamentally wrong. If you really want to see who really attacks who, have a look at the religious guys in parts of this world, those who believe in a God, and watch them strap explosives on themselves and walk into the middle of a dense market and blow themselves up, taking as many as they can to the grave with them, murdering as many as they can in the name of their God. That's really an attack. And atheists absolutely do not do that. We simply question the validity of religion. Let's get that clear. In the article, Professor Reville says the following: the purpose of the natural sciences, physics, chemistry, biology, geology, etc., is to discover how the natural material world works. And he also goes on to say that by definition, science is also silent on the supernatural. Now we have to think about this. Science tells us how the real world works. That's what it does. But science is silent on the supernatural. And I agree that science is silent on the supernatural. Unfortunately, Professor Reville does not say why science is silent on the supernatural. But this is because the supernatural simply does not exist. There is absolutely no evidence at all for the existence of anything supernatural, and science cannot measure what simply does not exist. That is the reality. What a pity Professor Reville couldn't say that. Give some sort of an explanation as to why science is silent on the supernatural. Professor Reville also writes in his article the following: science is silent on God, but this does not mean, as many atheists propose, that science denies the existence of God. Carpentry is entirely silent on magnetism, but we cannot conclude therefore that carpentry denies the existence of magnetism. Now, what we also ought to recognize is that Professor Reville is also listed as the Public Awareness of Science Officer at University College Cork. He is the officer whose job it is, from his title one assumes, is to make the public aware of science. And yet he gives us this, that just because carpentry is entirely silent on magnetism, Therefore, we cannot conclude that carpentry denies the existence of magnetism. Carpentry is a trade. Magnetism is a fact of life. Of course, carpentry does not pronounce on magnetism, but carpenters who make up the trade of carpentry, they can pronounce on magnetism. And why can they pronounce on magnetism? They can pronounce on it because magnetism actually exists. It is real, it is measurable, it has effects, and they are there for all, everywhere in the whole world, practically in the whole universe, I would imagine, to test and to show that it exists. And to use that infantile and ridiculous argument to suggest that because science is silent on God, it doesn't mean that science denies the existence of God. Science is silent on God because there is no evidence whatsoever for the existence of any deity, of any hue, ever. There are simply no evidence to sustain the idea that there is a God. And that is why science is silent on it. Professor Reville writes the following in his article. He writes, "Religion has no competence to explain the mechanisms that underpin the natural world, and science has no competence to explain the purpose or value of human life or to adjudicate on morality or ethics." I want to say from the outside that I absolutely and I profoundly disagree with statements like that. I actually think it's quite sad that a man whose title it is the Science Awareness Officer of an Irish university should relegate science to such a backseat, a silent backseat role in issues like this. I think that's rather tragic. In relation to religion having no competence to explain the mechanisms that underpin the natural world, well, by gum, it didn't stop them from trying. The book of Genesis would tell us how exactly humans, animals, the world, the sun, moon and stars all came into existence. It gives a timeline, it gives a mechanism, all of which is false. It's false, and we know it's false because the evidence that we have gathered through the only tool that we can basically trust in this matter, science, with empirical evidence, empirical investigation, shows us that these stories are false. That's all they are stories. The problem, of course, is if the Bible is the Word of God, and if this is so wrong, how much else of it is wrong? How much else of it can we agree or disagree with? If one bit is wrong, the rest is suspect. Let's get back to the science bit again. Science has no competence to adjudicate on the value of human life, morality or ethics. What do we use then? What is the mechanism by which humans can determine where human values, where morality and where ethics come from? The suggestion, of course, by Professor Reville is that it is from the Christian tradition. But that Christian tradition emanates from the Bible, and the Bible contains some of the most immoral acts, the most immoral commands that you could ever possibly want to have the misfortune to read about. What am I talking about? Well, let's have a look at what these particular things are, and they come direct from the Bible. And like me, if you find these things repulsive, if you find them immoral, then how are you going to suggest that the Christian tradition is responsible for human morality? In my book, it certainly is not. Let me show you what I mean. Have a look at some of the verses from the Bible, this tradition of Christianity. Let's have a look at them. The remainder of my response will take place in the second part of my contribution to this debate. I'd like to thank you for listening to it so far. The second part will deal with the remainder of Professor Reville's article, in particular his ideas on what sort of a society an atheist type of society would be, and it would be great if you would have a look at that, listen to what I have to say about it, and say what you think of it. Thank you very much.